Alright, so I just finished week 1 of Louis Bell's monthly songwriting class, or hitmaking class, and so far I am really liking it, although I was pretty much right on in the first video that I did, and that this is definitely not a beginner's class. So if you are a beginner, I would probably recommend like Ryan Tedder's class, or I haven't taken Charlie Puth's, but I know that one is probably geared more towards beginner intermediate. But this one assumes a lot of knowledge, and so if you haven't already at least like maybe written a song before, or at least if you're not comfortable using your DAW, this is going to be a bit of a uphill climb for you. But if you have used those things, then I think this could be a really good next level for you. So I'll dive into some things on things that we've learned, as well as just overall thoughts so far during week 1. So this is the dashboard. So when you go to the monthly page for this class, you go to the class home and it has today's tasks. So these are just things that you need to work on. So there's videos that you go through, but then there's also assignments that you do. And so you kind of go through like that, checking off each as you finish them. And then there's also these peer feedback things, which I'll touch on in just a minute. So if we look through the curriculum, I talked about the onboarding and intro stuff already. So you get part 1 unlocked. So this is the songwriting, you creating a song by yourself. And so this comprises the whole beginning half of the course. And so the whole part is unlocked, so you can go through as quick or as slow as you want. Well, not as slow as you want. You got to keep up, at least if you want peer feedback. But you kind of go through and it tells you when each of the videos and assignments are due. So I'll just kind of go through here. So the intro is just Louis just welcoming you to the class. He kind of has a similar thing in the onboarding section. And then the next piece of this is him laying down an initial track. And as per usual with monthly, it's very much long form content, which is good. So you see pretty much all of the just raw trial and error of how Louis makes a track. And some things that he does are okay, and then other things sound better, and he kind of goes through and he does a pretty reasonable job of talking you through his thought process through the whole thing. Now watching this video, it becomes pretty evident that Louis is a big fan of playing whatever goes into the DAW, meaning that he doesn't use a ton of samples. So if you're someone that uses a lot of samples and don't have really any skill with playing piano or guitar or some form of instrument, you're going to find his method to be challenging because he doesn't really use samples. And then the other thing that is kind of interesting is that when Louis is making a track, he doesn't use any drums whatsoever. So he starts with a chord progression and then bases a melody off of that. So a lot of this first video is him coming up with a chord progression on the piano, figuring out what sounds good, and then sort of arranging that progression into different varieties as he goes through and arranges the track. So that's what he does in pretty much this whole entire video. And then in the following, you then have to create a track yourself. So what I really like is that monthly kind of has a bullet point list of pretty much most everything that he covered in the video, so that when you go to just so that if you're not taking notes, which I recommend doing anyway, I take notes on a Google Doc, but if you don't, then this at least has a pretty good gist of what was in the video. So once you submit your assignment, it goes into the learning path over here, which I'll go to in just a second. So the next video is all about writing the melody. So for this, again, it's a 2-hour long video of Louis trying to go on through trial and error. He basically just sings a bunch of just humming da-da-das, gibberish, to try to find a melody that pairs well. And so Louis is not like a great singer. I mean, he's pretty passable, I would say. But the thing that he mentions, and I would agree with this, is that you don't have to be a good singer, but there's something very important about having that human element of adding some sort of a vocal melody, because you can try to program it in, but at the end of the day, it's just going to seem very robotic versus you actually singing a melody, because you have that more direct input versus you just playing something on a keyboard and using that as a melody. So he really stresses the importance on that. A couple little things is that Louis uses a ton of automation. So if you've never done automation, don't expect him to go over what that is. You should know how to do that. He does a lot of cross-fading vocals to make them sit in the pocket. One thing that he talks about, or rather doesn't talk about, is he talks about putting instruments and vocals in the pocket, but he doesn't really explain how to do it. I mean, you get a sense of how to do it just because you see the screen of his DAW, and so you see what he's doing, but he doesn't really talk through it. And that's kind of overarching theme for this, is that he doesn't always go through the details of what he's doing, especially when it comes to VSTs, effects, and just things that he does in his DAW. But he does explain some things, just not everything. So this is, this is the writing the melody part, and then so you have to do the same thing, and then write a melody for the chord progression that you made in the first part of your track. Okay, so you do all that, you submit that, and then this is where you get your first bit of peer feedback. So the peer feedback part is basically you get assigned 3 people who you have to leave feedback for. And so I have 3 people here, and so I just listened to their song ideas, and then I left some comments about things that I liked, things that could be improved upon, things of that nature. You're just trying to help people out, and the more that you're involved with the community, I just think the better experience overall. I got a comment not too long ago about this guy asking, like, well, do I have to do all the assignments, or can I just watch the videos? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, you can just watch all the videos, but I don't think you're going to get as much out of it versus you actually trying to stick with the deadlines of the assignments and trying to be supportive with your group. You know, a lot of this is you get a way to build connections, and you never know. I might be collaborating with one of these people, and if you join a monthly class, you might be collaborating with someone from that group. So just be open to that. So yes, so then you leave peer feedback, and then other people also leave peer feedback for you as well, as long as you submit your assignment on time. So then the next thing, and this is the last thing that I've gotten to so far in week 1, is the chorus, lyrics, and vocals. So again, this is just Louis. He kind of just goes through line by line. He stresses the importance of you need to figure out what the chorus melody and lyrics are, because that is going to structure the whole rest of your song. So you need to have some sort of a meaning, like what does your song want to say? And so he always harps on the fact that you need to trust your gut instinct, which I get isn't the most tangible piece of advice, but there's some, I see where he's coming from in that. So just trying to figure out, what do you want your song to say? Because that is what you want your chorus to be. What's the whole message of this? And then everything else is going to be easier to write because you have that. Because everything else is just details leading up to that big message. So this is him just going line by line through the chorus, trying out different ideas as far as lyrics go, because he already has a melody that he did before, and just figuring out what works, what sounds good, and trying not to adhere too much to some rhyme scheme, but if it happens to rhyme, he kind of goes through that. So he finds a big idea first and then hones it into more of a musical scheme. And so I haven't done that with my track yet, but that's something that is going to be due in the next couple days. So moving on from that, we have the learning path. So this just kind of goes through everything that you've done so far. So if you just want to recap on what you've done, and then the peer group is where everyone can either post just a little hello message, or just a lot of the assignments go here as well. So you can literally just look through and see everyone's assignments. You can comment and really just try to build some connections with people. So what I want to do is show you what I've done so far. So this is my first, this is my melody idea for the first song that I've done. It's kind of like a darker pop song, and you can see that I have a few people that have given me some peer feedback, which is really cool. All right, so let's take a listen. We'll just do like the first verse and chorus, just so you have an idea of what it sounds like. So let's do it.
I don't want you to make it all around. I don't want you to take me down. So I don't know how to love. Don't need to find about it. Don't know, and I could be right, and I know I don't know where I belong. I know, apologize for all the things that made me who I am today. I don't want things to make it all around. I don't want you to let me down. I don't want to go somewhere high, no fall. I don't want you to make it all around. I don't know.
All right, so that is what I have so far. I really like the direction of it so far, and you know, I even put it in here. Sometimes the timing's a little bit off, but you know, I'll fine tune that as we go along. But now, as you listen, a lot of the lyrics make no sense because it was just random words that popped into my head. But now I have, my task is to formulate the chorus lyrics. So that is due in 2 days, and so that is what I have to work on now. So far I really like the chorus. One thing, there are so many VSTs that Louis uses and effects that he uses. One thing that I wish he went over better was what he uses for his vocal chain. You can pretty much figure it out when you see his DAW and you see what's on his inserts and his sends, but because his template is so freaking ridiculous, he has close to 100 tracks on there. No joke. It is pretty hard to follow. So anyway, it just makes it a little bit cumbersome to try to figure out what kind of effects he uses, but he talks through some of them, but not a lot of them. But I guess at the end of the day, this is more of a workflow course than anything. So you're watching his workflow, how he does things, and that's pretty much what I try to gather from this, is what sort of workflow tips and practices can I adopt to make just the songwriting process easier. All right, so I hope this has been helpful, and then stay tuned because when it is available, you'll be able to check out week 2 here. And don't forget, if it is open enrollment and you're interested in joining a monthly class, either this one or one of the other ones, you can save $20 using the link below. All right, I will see you in the next video. Take care.